We can start with that. And it's actually funny because I had his press release pulled up here, and I promise you this like massively oversized
Can I read it?
Oklahoma flag graphic was not there before. Like it was just text, and now there's this huge culturally appropriating Oklahoma flag. Yes, you may.
I
Go
want
for
to.
it.
I rarely do this, but I would like to read this because this is hilarious. Mind you, before we go, just set this up. The Court of Criminal Appeals just gives the tribes federal sovereignty. There's no ripping apart or whatever the case may be. Tribal sovereignty. So the tribes can decide to take any criminal matters. If they decide not to take them, the federal government must take them, right? So like, or can decide to take them. So no one is committing crimes and getting away scot free. There are no victims in search of justice. Mind you, the federal government has substantially more resources. They have invested more resources in the the northern, eastern, and western districts of Oklahoma. I think, but western doesn't really have a lot, but the northern and eastern districts have gotten a ton of resources that they invested in. They do this better than the state, much to my chagrin as a criminal defense attorney. I'm going to read you the governor's statement to them, just saying, "Well, that tribe has tribal sovereignty." The Supreme Court's McGirt ruling continues to tear Oklahoma apart. Today, the Court of Criminals Appeals, typo, found that for purposes of federal criminal law, a portion of Ottawa County no longer falls under the jurisdiction of the state of Oklahoma. That's just for tribal members, mind you, not me. Today is the sixth new jurisdiction in our state, tribal sovereignty. Oklahoma is literally being torn into pieces. One of the most basic functions of a state in the United States of America is the ability to enforce the rule of law and keep the public safe. If we cannot do that, we do not have a state. Oklahoma has lost much of that ability in the eastern half of our state, and as of today, that now includes another portion of Ottawa County. As I have said from the beginning, McGirt not only creates a public safety nightmare, but threatens the sovereignty of our state to its core. Oklahoma is being cobbled up piece by piece. This cannot stand.
I love it. I love literally ripped apart. It's like, I mean, like literally ripped apart, like when the fracking earthquakes were going on, or like I'm not following the literal part here.
No, like if no quote unquote crime being committed is going unresolved or unchallenged or untried by the government. It's merely the federal government, which has substantially more resources, more seasoned prosecutors, is much well equipped, frankly, to handle these matters. And I mind you guys, we live in a state that on any given day incarcerates or cages more human beings than any place on earth. The dockets were already clogged up in the state because we lock a lot of motherfuckers up. If you compound that with COVID, and this is from someone who works in these dockets, it's insane what's going on right now.
Right.
So this is actually the federal government acknowledging tribal sovereignty and taking some of the, in my opinion, horrid criminal legal system, if you want to call it that, like off that plate and placing it with a better resourced entity. But what it comes down to is two things. Number one, Kevin Stitt is scared that his oil and gas oligarchs may somehow be affected by this, because the question looming in legal circles is, if the tribes have criminal sovereignty, what other sovereignty do the tribes have? Kevin Stitt is concerned that the moneyed interest that who is really the only constituency he gives a fuck about, not about tribal victims, will this give them an opportunity, the tribes opportunity to tax them more, or to create some sort of system in which the tribes and their resources will have some sort of advantage over Kevin Stitt's moneyed interest? That's his concern. Kevin Stitt doesn't give a fuck about victims. He never has. Okay, so let's get that out of the way now, right? So, and the second thing is, Oklahoma enjoys locking motherfuckers up. That's all we. That's the only thing we do well. And to be challenged in any regard on locking motherfuckers up, as if that's such a huge problem. Again, people are still getting locked up. It's just that we not locking them up, right?
Right.
To be challenged in any regard is just beyond the pale of what the state of Oklahoma and Kevin Stitt can stand for, and we're being ripped apart at the seams.
Literally
so,
ripped apart.
It is like I don't know, man. I don't know where they found this guy. Like, so,
I just love how they're like so desperate to mine this for like content. You know, it's like we've just got to get people like riled up about this. And I haven't seen good polling on like how the public really feels about this. I'm guessing they don't give much of a
It's
shit.
kind of confusing, honestly, because it's just confusing legal jargon. You don't know like what.
Yeah.
And frankly, the courts don't know, and that's what Kevin Stitt is trying to get ahead of this thing. So whenever if the courts say, okay, this applies in certain civil matters, and the tribes can tax his oil and gas oligarchs or tax whomever, and they're losing money, Kevin Stitt wants to get ahead of it and say, oh, the victims, right? This is kind of epitomizes the classic Republican playbook, which is to mine grievances
Right.
like victims they don't care about in order to get advantages for the oligarchs who support them, who fund them, who is their only constituency that they actually give a fuck about, right? So this is just like this epitomizes that, right?
Yep.
And that's all it is. But
But I just
I
don't know politically how this plays. I mean, it's like, you know, the Chickasaws just announced a $300 million development down like right next to downtown Oklahoma City that's going to like, you know, transform a huge vacant lot right now. It's like, my guess is the public's way more in tune to moves like that as a PR thing versus like obscure, you know, criminal jurisdiction crap from McGirt. You know, like
I think he's banking on the public not being very knowledgeable, so he can just say, "Oh, the victims." But I think if the tribes actually felt the need, and frankly, I don't think it is there now. But the tribes ever like actually felt the need as to what it entails. Like, no one, if you are harmed by an indigenous person, either we will take care of that, or the much better resource federal government will take care of that. There's nothing is going like there are no crimes going untried. There are no
right,
victims that
right,
aren't getting quote unquote justice. Which, by the way, having someone put in a cage is not quote unquote justice.
right.
It's not victim versus defendant. It's the state of Oklahoma, this tribe, or the United States government. And being frank with you, my concern is, and about shitting and locking motherfuckers up, like the feds are worse. Like if you catch a federal charge, it's much more likely you'll be convicted. It's much more likely you will do a ton of time. Like it's actually worse. Like I have a buddy, they're shooting the McGirt cases all around the country. And I have a buddy who's a federal PD out in Los Angeles, and he has a McGirt case. And the guy has like 100 years state, and they're talking about moving it so it can be tried federally. And he gets so many days in the state because, just frankly, Oklahoma locks so many motherfuckers up, so you got to turn them in and out, right? He gets so many days in the state. It's like if I go fed, I'll have to serve actually a lot more time. So I want to stay in the state where I'm getting like 700 days a year, and I'll be out, right? So like in actuality, like if this state was reasonable in any regard, you look at the docket and say, hell yeah, give the feds more cases. We don't want these, right? But just because of how this state operates and how our government's a dickhead, this is what we get to.
Yep. Yep. So yeah, it's bad faith all the way down. It's not going to make us safer.
It's ripping
Yeah.
the state apart.
It's ripping the state asunder. Yeah, I mean, it's like all I've seen from the tribe so far is a PR campaign. It'd be great if they like really went full political with this, especially now that Stitt's got, you know, a real race on his hands. Like there's more, like a lot more attention being paid to the gubernatorial race. It'd be great to see that. Thanks for watching our video. Please give it a like and hit that subscribe button for more content. If you want to engage with us, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and Instagram.